before we get officially started today, we're going to take a little bit direction than what I had planned today. And the reason why is because there was so much that came out of the economic update that Gary Keller gave that I wanted to take a little bit of time to focus on that today. So that's where we're going to go. And I'm going to give you not just what I took away from the economic update, but the strategies that you can put into your business to actually take action on the things that Gary Keller was talking about. So with that being said, who has any takeaways that they want to share from Mega Camp last week? We got quite a few of you on here. Don't all jump on at once, but somebody hop on and share with me what they took away from Mega Camp last week.
There's a lot of ways to do real estate.
Okay, tell me a little more about that. What do you mean, Laura?
Well, the old traditional approach, or with social media now, we have a lot of different tools. They gave us more insight to some of those different tools. And that's something I'm excited about. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Who else?
Don't try to do too many different things. Narrow it down to one or two things and get really good at those instead of spreading yourself too thin where you don't get really good at anything.
Okay. So what do you, I mean, Gene, you sell real estate and you coach people. What do you see people, you know, trying to focus on too many things at once? What are some of those things they focus on that they shouldn't be?
Well, it's not necessarily that I don't see them that they shouldn't be, because everybody's path is different, and their niche, their lead generation niche, and what they're comfortable with and will do and will be productive with is different. But they're trying to do, you know, social media and their web page and networking and open houses and door knocking and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, like I've had some people in coaching tell me open houses don't work. I've done 3 of them and they don't work. It's like, well, maybe they do work, or we wouldn't see so many of them. Maybe we've got to get better at them.
Yeah,
Between
absolutely.
What we do to promote it beforehand, how we interact with clients during the open house, and our follow-up systems. And so each thing works, but we just got to get good enough at it to work. And I'll say, remember the first time you tried to ride a bicycle? How many times did it take you to get really good at riding a bicycle? It wasn't the first time or the second or the third, probably. So yeah, just spreading themselves too thin and not focusing in to get good enough at any one thing. Oh, there's that word, one thing.
One thing. So for you, Gene, what was the one thing that you're going to focus on moving forward in your realm right now?
Right now, in terms of coaching, it's just following up individually, one-on-one with the clients that are A, productive, B, engaged, or C, both.
Okay, I love it. All right, thank you, Gene. Who else? One more person.
If you want.
Speak up.
Also,
Go ahead.
all right, so change is inevitable, participation is optional.
Ooh, man, yeah, that was deep. What does that mean to you, Erica?
I think we always have to embrace change and pivot and just embrace it. Don't fight it. Roll with it. Constantly pivot personally and professionally. And yet it's also not required. So
you're right. And if there was a year where change happens, and not only happens fast, I would say that we are in that year right now. What do you think?
Well, and Scott, I'm going to put an addendum on the end of that statement and say participation and success are optional, right?
Ooh,
Gary talked about that. So you can participate and do this, but to be successful in this, that's optional. You actually have to go and get it.
Yeah, change is inevitable, participation is optional. And if we go and look at that, so let's look at Sears, and let's look at Kmart, and let's look at JCPenney. Change was rapidly happening in their industry. Well, it wasn't even rapidly happening. It was gradually happening in their industry. and they chose not to adapt. They chose not to pivot and participate. And now we've got this huge company, Amazon. And for those of you who don't know about kind of what Amazon's story is, Amazon went 14 years without ever making a profit.
Huh.
Now, why in the world would a company go 14 years without making a profit? Because their goal was to have the lowest margin possible and to get people to use their platform, to make it sticky. So what they did was back 15, 20 years ago, people weren't necessarily comfortable with just ordering a product online and waiting for it to get to the door, because if you needed something right away, it was still faster to go into the store. Well, what Amazon did was, at the beginning, they said, you can get your product in a week. Okay. And then from a week, they went to, well, we can have your product to you in 3 days if you pay for this upgraded service called Prime. And then from there, they went to, okay, well, because you're a Prime member now, we've developed an opportunity to get your packages to you, to your front door in 2 days. And then from there, they went to, well, now we have next day delivery available. And all the while, Sears is sitting over there saying, well, I mean, people still coming into our store, not a big deal. Kmart's sitting over there, hey, not a big deal. We don't have to change anything. Walmart's over there looking at this saying, okay, something's going on here. We're going to need to come up with something. So Walmart starts to develop their processes, develop their systems, change things a little bit, which is why you still see Walmart and Target available. And now you don't even have to go in the store to get your product. But going back to Amazon, they said, okay, well, we're heavily dependent upon UPS and FedEx. So we're going to look at companies that are going out of business, airline companies that have gone out of business, and we're going to go and buy their planes. So Amazon develops their own fleet of airplanes, and I think they have, I want to say they have 37 jumbo jets now that are just for cargo. And while they are doing that, they now have 10,000 semi-trucks that are just for cargo. So they've eliminated the need for UPS for the most part. They've eliminated the need for FedEx, and they've eliminated the need for the United States Postal Service for the most part. So they're disrupting an industry slowly. And it all started with just one single thought of, how do we make it sticky? And are we willing to not make any money while we make it happen? And in 4 years, over that time, after they went without profit for 14 years, in 4 years, they've now become the most profitable company that is a retail corporation. In 4 years, because they were willing to lose money through all that time. Now, when Gary Keller stood on stage 4 years ago and said, we are a technology company, he was looking at things like Amazon was looking at things. And if we go full circle on Amazon now, Amazon is now reaching out to the malls where Sears was, the malls where JCPenney's is, and saying, hey, Simon Malls, we want to go ahead and rent that space from you that's in your mall that is where Sears was and is where JCPenney's was, and we want to turn it into a warehouse, a local warehouse. So they want to take mall space and turn it into a warehouse location. Now, why do they want to do that? Because every single major metropolitan area that has a mall locates that mall in a geographical center area of the highest population. So now Amazon can all of a sudden go from, we want to have your package to you the next day, to we want to have your package to you today, to we want to have your package to you within 2 hours. And the goal for Amazon is that they want to have any item that you could ever feasibly need to your front door within 2 hours. And oh, by the way, because they're making it full circle and being willing to go and rent that space back from the malls, they can kind of name their price now. And the reason why is because you don't have any other big box retailers who are willing to go and take over mall space. So what Amazon has now done is gone to these mall outlets and said, hey, we want to rent your space from you. Oh, and by the way, we're willing to pay only 50% of what Sears was paying. We're willing to pay only 50% of what JCPenney's was paying. And the malls are seriously considering it. In some places, they've actually taken advantage of it because they need to they need to be able to pay their mortgage on the mall for those investors who created that place to keep it actually moving. So that's just a real quick insight into the whole Amazon story. There's a documentary about it if you want to go and watch it. It's not on Netflix or anything like that. It's on YouTube, and it shows you the progression of how they wanted to do it. So Gary Keller was looking at this 4 years ago. Well, he was really looking at it about 7 years ago. 4 years ago is when they made the pivot and made it public that, hey, we're going to become a technology company. Here's the direction that we're going to go. And we're working at doing the exact same thing that Amazon has done, however, just in our own industry. Because if we don't take action as a real estate company in the industry, is it possible that Amazon could come in and do the exact same thing to the real estate industry? I believe it is highly possible that Amazon could come and do the exact same thing to the real estate industry, and they can't do it right now because of the people that we've partnered with. So us partnering with Google and us partnering with Facebook is bigger than you can ever know. And it's not just, like Gary Keller said, it's not just us partnering with them. It's that they're standing on stage and they're publicly stating that we are the only real estate company that they have partnered with. Because there's a lot of companies out there that are saying, hey, we've partnered with Facebook. Well, anybody can say that they're partnered with Facebook if they go and buy a Facebook ad. Congratulations. But we're the only one who has a data feed between Facebook and Google, and Facebook and Google has a data feed with us. So just keep that in mind. All right, so one last thing. Anybody else take anything away from MegaCamp before we jump into today's session? Or anybody have anything to say about what we just went over?
Sometimes you have to put profit first, not as a remainder.
Yes. Well, if we were going to go and talk to Gary Keller about this, Gary Keller would tell us we always have to put profit first, which is why there's a book that he's really talked about a ton over the last 2 years, which is the book Profit First. And the book Profit First teaches us that we need to go, and every single closing that we have, we need to pay ourselves first. And when I say pay ourselves first, I'm not saying pay ourselves all of it. We have to pay ourselves a portion of it. That's what we realize is our profit. And then we put the other money into other places. Remember, you do have to pay taxes. So that would be number one place where you would put your other, you're going to call that an expense, and then you're going to pay for, you're going to have an account for all of your other additional expenses like your board dues, your MLS, and everything like that. And you're also going to have a reinvestment account where you're reinvesting back into your business. So yes, Sarah, thank you so much for reminding us of that. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump on into today's session. Let me share my screen with you. There we go. We're going to start with my buddy, Dr. John Maxwell.
If I could come off the stage and have a personal conversation with each one of you. And if I ask you if you wanted to be successful, everybody in this room would say, absolutely. That's why you're here. That's why you registered. That's why you paid money. But if you and I could take that success conversation and expand it, and I ask you to tell me what you thought success was, in a crowd this size, I would promise you there would be probably 2 or 3 dozen different answers, because success can be very subjective. I would like to talk to you about it today. I've studied the subject for 30 plus years. I've tried to ask questions of successful people. I've tried to talk to them, tried to discover what made them successful, and kind of find out what they think success is. This is a success symposium. This is a day that you've set aside, I've set aside to kind of be more successful and get our act together and hit our potential and climb a new level. That's why we're all here. And I think it would be maybe good for us to take just a few minutes and kind of have as a settling point and as a starting point what success is. I think success, first of all, is knowing my purpose in life. As I have watched and observed successful people, what I have discovered about them is they really have figured out why they're here. They really do have their act together. And knowing their purpose in life is a stability for them. So that when everyone else is rocking and rolling and things are a little unsteady and people are kind of leaving the ship and people are kind of abandoning their causes, these people, they hold steady right throughout the storm because they have a true North Star. They truly are focused. It becomes an anchor in their life that just holds them steady. And the anchor is a confidence based upon a knowledge of purpose. Someone said that there are two great days in a person's life: the day that they are born and the day they discover why. I'm here to tell you, highly successful people, they've discovered why.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on that?
Very true. Good video. I would agree with that full force. It gives you motivation to do stuff.
Okay. All right, anyone else?
You should definitely know your why. It'll take you to a whole nother level and give you more of a reason and purpose to check things off your list on a daily basis.
Yeah. So here's what I really want you to take away from that. The conversation that we had on the very first session of, drawing your world and then drawing the world of your families in it and drawing the world of your business partners in it. It's not a conversation that ends. It's a conversation that we pivot. There's going to be things that come up that are going to be your why right now. There's going to be things that come up that are going to become your why later. And just because you have one thing doesn't mean that there are other things that aren't important. And the quote that John Maxwell said there at the end is actually a quote by Mark Twain. And Mark Twain is the person who said there are two important days in someone's life: the day they're born and the day they find out why. And for us, the purpose thing of it is so important. Yeah, we may not know exactly what that is today. We may not know exactly what that is a couple of years from now, but we can know different aspects of what our purpose is in the moment right now. And that's why it's so important for us to go back and re-examine what our priorities are. And that's why we can ask ourselves that focusing question that we talked about at the very beginning of our sessions together was, what is it that I want to accomplish this year? What is it that I want to experience this year? Because that can be your why right now. That can be your purpose right now. That you see, about 15, it might have been 20 years ago now, there was a book that came out by Rick Warren called The Purpose-Driven Life. And so many people went after that book and read that book because that is the one thing that people aspire to know about. Where do I belong? Where do I fit in? What is it that drives me? And if we go and look at the millennial generation, it's not that they really just don't want to do anything. It's that they want to know that what they're doing is for something greater than just themselves. I know that sounds ironic because so many of them only look at themselves, but they truly want to do something that's going to make a difference. And they're a little bit lost because we don't have the same leadership that we had 50 years ago to be able to help people discover what their one thing is. I think it was John F. Kennedy that said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. And looking back at that, I mean, how profound of a statement was that? And if we were to ask that in today's climate and in today's society, especially in an election year, I don't even want to know what answers we would end up getting. But that's why we've got to go back and re-examine where we're at and what our purpose should be all the time. And it's why on that board that you have for your goals, you've got to have your goal and then those words, so I can, so we can. This will allow us to. And I just wanted to bring you back and remind you of that today before we get into some numbers, because I know numbers can be a little bit overwhelming to some people. Yes, Erica, so I can. That is so important. Okay, so let me share my screen with you again. We're going to go right back into the numbers, and we're going to talk about some stuff at Mega Camp and what you can do strategically in your business right now, because really these numbers that came out at Mega Camp, they could look a little overwhelming. They could look a little bit scary. And this is a huge opportunity for you. So let's go ahead and look at the unemployment slide that Gary Keller put up at Mega Camp. So if you look at the unemployment during the Great Recession, they call the Great Recession the years of 2007 through 2012. Although really he said in his speech at Mega Camp that it really started in 2005 because that's when they really started to see it, but it didn't show up until 2007. So in December of 2007, unemployment for the country was at 5%. Okay. And then October of 2009, it went all the way up to 10%, and 10% is the highest that it got during the last Great Recession, which, like I said, was from 2007 to 2012. And then all the way by May of 2013, it got down to 7.5%. Now, here in Texas, we're a little bit of an anomaly because our unemployment rate has gotten down to a point back in 2019. It got all the way down to at one point in time, 2.4%. Now, 2.4% is basically 100% of people being employed. It is almost unheard of to have that low of a unemployment rate. Now, that's a really good thing and it's a really bad thing. Now, why could having an unemployment rate that's that low be a bad thing? Well, it means that for those people who are actively seeking people to have jobs in their companies, they may not have the talent pool that they're truly looking for because everyone who needs a job has one already. All right, so let's go over to 2020 over here on the left side of the screen, the monthly unemployment for 2020. Now, January and February, you know, before the world changed at the drop of a hat, we're at 3.5% nationally for unemployment. So here in Texas, we're at 2.4%. Nationally, we're at 3.5%. And then in 1 month, we went from 3.5% to 14.7% unemployment. And that is absolutely unheard of. And then if you go and look at it, April was not a good month. May was not very good. But down here, when we get to August, it drops all the way back down to 8.4%. So our national job unemployment rate is 8.4%. Now, the numbers for September obviously haven't come out yet because we're still in September. But the pattern looks as though this rate is going to continue to go down, and they're anticipating somewhere in about the range of 7.5% for unemployment by the end of this month, which is a great thing, means that we're recovering in a different way than what we had anticipated. But I'm going to go on to this next slide here, which is going to show something really, really intriguing. So we've got this dichotomy of a very, very interesting real estate market. So that's because the people who weren't affected by job losses, they're protected in their jobs. And the market really hasn't changed a whole lot for them, which is why we see so many people buying their dream homes and buying things that they never really thought they would be able to because their jobs weren't affected. And for their dream homes, you got to keep in mind, interest rates have never been as low as they are right now. I saw somebody the other day that locked in at 2.25% interest on a 30-year fixed loan. Now, They had a couple of other circumstances that allowed them to do that. It was a VA loan. They were partially disabled. And that's why they're able to lock in at 2.25%. Yet right now, the average consumer could feasibly lock in at 2.625%. Now, a year ago, let's take that back. 18 months ago, when I bought my house, I locked in at 4.5%. I had great credit. So we're talking in 18 months, interest rates went from 4.5% to literally down 2%. Now, this is an amazing opportunity for you if you're not calling your database and just having conversations about what their interest rate is when they bought their home. You're missing the boat here, because if you want to provide amazing value and truly come from contribution and make yourself that agent that they will never, ever choose a different agent for, right now you're picking up your phone, even if they closed their house 18 months ago, and you're saying, hey, I don't know if you know this, but interest rates are historically low right now, and you could save hundreds of dollars compared to what you're paying right now for your home simply by refinancing. And here at Keller Williams, we have Keller Mortgage, which is an option for you, gives them $1,000 credit even on their refi, which essentially makes it to where they have no lender fees at all. So let's look at this chart here. So on the right side, on the left side here, you've got the financial activities. So the unemployment rate is in the purple. The average weekly earnings is in the teal. So right here, you've got the higher earners for their weekly salary. And on average, these people are making $1,425 a month, and they've got the lowest unemployment rate as of August in 2020. And then we look and we go through here, and as we go through here, you're going to see a change. So the places that have been hit the most are retail trade, and then leisure and hospitality and education and health services, which happen to be on the lower end of the income earners, which is really creating two completely different markets. So this is not, the statement that I'm going to make is not 100% true, yet I think you'll find that there is truth to it. On the far right side is more of the rental side of our economy. On the far left, on the left side is more of the people who own homes in the United States, which creates two totally different markets for us. So are these people affected? Absolutely, they're going to be affected, especially if they own multiple properties. But right now, if they're individuals who own their own homes and aren't dependent upon other income or anything like that coming in from investment properties or anything like that, for the most part, they're in a secure place. They haven't really felt the change of the market. And as Gary said in his mega camp speech, the savings for a lot of people has actually gone up to historically high levels. And the reason why is because when the country blanketed the CARES Act and basically gave everyone a check for $1,200, there were a lot of people that put that in savings or put that in the stock market. And then over here on this side of things, that money barely helped them to get by, and if they were able to get by at all. So that's where you can look and see two different markets here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about strategy and how this right side, it can really affect the way that you do things and can really work to your advantage, especially on that rental side. All right, so then let's go to unemployment and housing by age. So here's where you get that tale of two markets as well. Now, historically, the percentage of people who are 24 or younger that own a home is less than 3%. Because most people, let's just be honest, they don't have it together and they're not able to afford a home if they're under 24 years old. Right now, the unemployment rate for people who are under 24 years is 14.1%. So the younger people are the ones who have been the most affected. And if you go and look at that previous slide there, it's because those are majority of the people are in leisure and hospitality, retail trade, not so much education and health services, but definitely those last two there, which would equate for the rate being so high there. All right, and then if we go and look at the next one, 25 to 34 age range, 25% of annual home purchases come from that right there, and they're at 9.7%. And then finally, that last category of people who are 35 years and older, 72% of the homes every single year are bought by those people, and their unemployment rate is at 6.8%. So you can see how that would also affect the market, because over here on the left side, you've got mostly renters. On the right side, you've got much more homeowners. All right, then let's go here. Here's where I really, really get excited for everyone who is in real estate right now. Because year to date, year over year change in home sales is down 4.7%, y'all. So if you go and look at this right here in January, it was up it was up, and then we end up going down a little bit. So we're down 4.7% for the year, and that is because of what happened right here in April, May, and June. You see that right there? We went in a V-shaped pattern right here to down. And then, of course, in July, we went up. But here's your biggest opportunity. Because we went down in home sales for the year, the people who are looking for homes are going to have to pay more money, because all of those people who are sitting there with their hands on their asset, man, I probably should have said that in a little different way, but sitting there and not willing to make a move because they're wondering what's going to happen with the economy. This is really the best possible time for them to choose to sell their home, because here's what we're seeing. We're seeing the interest rate go down. So on average, back on January 1st, it was 3.62%. And then July, it was down to 3.02%. And now we know we're down in the 2.6% range. Housing prices year over year are up 6.4%. So for those of you who had people back in September, October, November, December, telling you, I think I'm going to wait until the fall, or not the fall. I think I'm going to wait till the spring. I think that's going to be the time when I'm really going to consider selling my house and looking for another one. Call those people. Show them this, because inventory is so low, so low, that you have an opportunity to help them sell their house for more money than they could have. 6.4% increase is a really, really big deal. We're used to seeing about 3% increase year over year, and right now we're at a 6.4% increase. So this is the time to reach out to those people, reconnect with them, and show them the big opportunity that they have. All right, and then months of supply and inventory. So here's where it comes in again. So in January 2019, we were at 3.9 months. And then in January of 2020, we're at 3.1 months. So just there, year over year, we're down. And then you see, we go all the way up to May, where our national inventory got to about 4.8 months of inventory, which in May, nationally, we were teetering on the edge of a balanced market. Balanced market is technically 4 to 6 months of inventory. So we'll say that for the sake of this, it was a balanced market. But here in Texas, not the case at all. On average, for the greater Fort Worth area, our average days on market are in our average months of inventory, we're like a month and a half. So that just means that if no listings came on the market for the next month and a half, everything would be sold. Unless it was just like the worst house out there possible. But then we go and look at this right here, and you see down here in July, we got all the way back down to 3.1 months of inventory. And I wouldn't be surprised if when you see these stats come out in for August and for September, you're going to see that number even lower, because people are unsure. And we've got a couple of things going on. We've got the pandemic, we've got social injustice, and we've got an election year. In election year, things typically pull back about this time of the year before they spring forward after the election happens, because you got the Democrats who are afraid the Republicans are going to win. You got the Republicans who are afraid the Democrats are going to win. And then you have January 20th, the next president gets sworn in, or the current president gets sworn in, and everything kind of goes back to normal within 6 months after that, because people realize, oh my gosh, the world didn't end. We just have another person in the office. So that's kind of what you see in an election year. However, right now, because we have such low inventory, we're seeing historically high sales in our offices, because of the fact that people who are on that far left side and can't afford are willing to do it because the interest rates are so low. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at it. And this is something to go and show your clients when they're thinking about selling, of showing them, hey, you know, inventory is really down low right now, and we can help you take advantage of that. All right, and then local market conditions. So I just wanted to share this with you. The reason I put this on here is actually so I can remember to share something with you. I've created a resource for every single person who's on this call. If you go to, I'm just going to open another tab here. You go to scotttolar.com and click on the 100 Club. You can actually click this national stats button here, and it's going to give you real-time stats for every single major metropolitan area in the country. So I know a lot of you guys are on here from the Atlanta, Georgia area. So if you see right here, Georgia, Atlanta right there, you can click on Quick Facts, and it's going to tell you the quick facts about what's going on in the market. Or if you want to go and click on Full Report, you can click that right there, and it's going to show you August 19 versus August 20. It's going to show you what the market looks like, and it's going to even break it down by the smaller areas within the Atlanta area here. And then same thing for all of my friends here in the Fort Worth area. If we go back here and look at this, we can go down to Texas. It is going to include Dallas, Fort Worth, Metroplex together. You can click on Full Report and see exactly what's going on. Now, this is available to you anytime you need it. And I just wanted to make sure that you realize that that's a resource there for you. This can be great data for you on your listing appointments, because it breaks it down here city by city as well for the Fort Worth area. And just like most other places in our country, that's there. So you can go and get that at scotttolar.com/100 Club and have access to that. All right, so let's go back to the slides that we've got here. All right, loan delinquency. So you know how I was talking about an opportunity for you here. Loan delinquency, here is where we're going to really have to start paying attention. So all the way up to May, it was less than 1% of people who had a mortgage were late by 90 days. Look at July. July is 3.12%. So over the course of 3 months, it went up 1%, up 1%, up 1%. You see where the trend's going?
Mm-hmm.
So look at that and pay attention. Now, who does the loan delinquency, what market does the loan delinquency affect? Well, it can be multiples. I bet if we were to go and interrogate this, there are people who have multiple properties, who have tenants in them, who aren't able to make their mortgage payment. Now, why is that the case? Well, there was a moratorium put in many counties throughout the country, and at one point in time it was for the whole country, for not being able to evict people from their homes based upon them not paying. Now, right thing to do? Probably. Right thing to do for the landlord and the owner of that property? Unless they had a huge savings on the back end and were prepared that that could even be a possibility, which most people who own rental property aren't prepared for the fact that they're going to have renters in it, but not have money coming in. So that's something to pay attention to right there, because that really affects people who own multiple properties, which is where I want to get into this. So this is another resource that I have for you on the page as well, on scotttolar.com/100 Club, is this one. So if you go here and you click on pre-listing lead sheet, this is something that I want to encourage every single one of you to do before you even get to the home. Go through this right here. Now, there's simple questions on here like, are you working with an agent? Yes or no? If so, have you signed an agreement? Great. This has also got other questions about what their home is actually like. Now, here's a life hack that I'm going to give you right here. For number 10, when you ask them, tell me about your house, here's what I want you to listen for. I want you to listen for adjectives. I want you to listen for their describing words that they're using to describe their home. Why would you do that? Well, here's why. When you get into their home the next day or later that day, or, you know, it's probably going to be a couple of days before you actually go there and you do your listing presentation with them, you're going to remember these words because mirror and matching is a thing. And you can reuse the words to describe their home to them, and they're not going to remember that you were listening for the words that they were using to describe their home. So if they talk about how they have an amazing farmhouse kitchen, and you so happen to walk into the kitchen and say, you know, this really has a farmhouse feel, I really love it. That's going to connect with them. Guess what? You just went higher on their page. If nobody else, if they're interviewing somebody else, you're a little higher because you're speaking their language directly back to them. But where I really want to get into this with you is right here on the financials. Don't skip this part. With the with the economy the way that it is right now, we can't be sure that every single person we're meeting with isn't behind on their mortgage. It's going to be uncomfortable to begin with to ask these questions, and just phrase it like this. Hey, you know, I know I'm going to ask you some questions that might be a little bit uncomfortable for you. Just know I ask them with everyone, and it's going to help us to make sure that we're helping you with your home in the best way possible. So I'm just going to ask them for you real quick. If there's anything you're uncomfortable with answering, just let me know. We'll talk about it. They're not going to say that they're uncomfortable with answering it. So how much do you owe on your first mortgage? If they ask you why you want to know that, just say, hey, I want to be able to give you an estimate for what you're going to be able to walk away with from the sale of your home. How much do you think your house is worth? Hey, this is where we find out what their expectations are. And it's where it helps us to decide what objections we're going to have to handle when we walk through the door. If they think their house is worth $350,000 and you have a CMA that says it's worth $375,000, your listing appointment just got really easy. If you walk into their house and they have an expectation of $350,000 and it's only worth $325,000, you know where you're going to have to handle an objection. And then down here, how much do you want for the house? So different than how much you think it's worth. What price won't you go below? Here we go. Are you up to date on payments? This is important because just because they're up to date on payments may not mean that they're making their payments, because forbearance is a thing now. And forbearance could affect their ability, and most of the time will affect their ability to qualify for that next home. So you may even want to ask them if they've applied for forbearance or anything like that. Are you the sole owner of the house? If not, who else is on the title? So I wanted to share this with you. That's a resource. You can get to that by going right here on the pre-listing lead sheet. Now, the reason I share that with you is because I've had agents who have simply won listings before because they took the time to go through this with somebody and nobody else asked them questions before they got to the house. Many people, when they get a phone call and says, hey, you know, I'm thinking about selling my home, the first three questions that an agent asks is, okay, what's your address? What time do you want me to be there? And actually it's two questions. What's your address and when do you want me to be there? And they don't really dig in deep to get to know about it. And when you take the time to go through this and you ask these questions about the home, you're able to provide yourself with more information for when you do your market analysis, and you're able to provide them with a way more detailed estimate of what they could sell their home for. And you've just shown them that you really care about a process and you have a procedure in place to be able to walk them through it and to get them the most money for their home. So this is a resource that I wanted to make sure that you have and that you use. Use this 100% of the time. For me, when I was selling real estate, I had these laminated and I had them in my car with me all the time. And I actually had one of those grease pens with me so that if somebody called me, I could write these things down, take a picture of it, send it to my assistant, and we were able to create a market analysis off of it that way. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. This is a fillable spreadsheet. When you download it, you could keep a copy in your phone and you could fill it out as you're asking those questions in that PDF, and then just save it as a PDF for yourself so that you have that information when you go to do that market analysis. All right, so I said a little bit ago that I was going to give you a strategy for the week that could help you to build your database and to help a lot of people in the process. So here's what it is. You see these homes up here and you see those two individuals? Those are people who own multiple properties. Here's the strategy for this week. Because we know that there's a moratorium in a lot of places in our country right now that have been put on people to prevent them from removing people from rental properties for non-payment. This could really, really affect those people who have multiple properties. So go into your appraisal district, go into your title company. This is why it's great to have a wonderful relationship with a title representative, and see who those people in your community are that own multiple properties in your county, in your city, whatever it is, and reach out to those people and show them what we talked about earlier, that now is a time where they could sell their house for more money than they ever have before. And there are people out there who are willing to take the risk, who are okay with tenants being in the home for a little while because they have the back end money saved up so that they could get through the time if tenants weren't able to pay their mortgage. And that's not going to last forever. Not mortgage, tenants weren't able to pay their rent. And that moratorium is not going to last forever. At some point in time, there's going to have to be something that happens that saves the homeowners too. So this is a really, really good time for you to be able to go and have those conversations with those homeowners. And they may decide that now's a good time to refinance. They may decide that now's a great time to list. But more importantly, they're going to be appreciative of the information that you've given them and showing them the fact that you care about their investments, and that you really care about who they are as individuals, because you're looking into people who own multiple homes so that you can show them what some of their options are during this difficult time that we have in our economy right now. So with that being said, that's what I wanted to share with you for the strategy this week. And remember, from here going forward, every single week, our goal is going to be 20 contacts per day, 3 new contacts added per day. That's 15 a week, or 100 contacts for the week. And remember, like we said before, if you're only at a place where you're doing 6 contacts a day, let's make it 7. Let's get to the place where we're making 7 contacts a day. And when I say contacts, that's one-to-one conversations that we're having with people, and then 3 new contacts added per day, 15 people a week. That's really important. And this strategy that I just gave you could be a great way for you to be able to build that up. And remember, every Tuesday evening, go to scotttolar.com/100club to fill out the accountability form so that we're tracking your progress as you go and seeing what you're doing in your business. All right. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to say that they took away from our session today?
But she's still pushing back.
What about the homes that are in forbearance? Because I've got several of those that they didn't tell us up front that they were in forbearance, and so I've talked with our lenders now. They're, they cannot get a loan for at least 3 months after coming out of forbearance. And I have 3 right now, and I didn't know at first. So I'm trying to soften the blow and say, okay, let's look at it, 3 to 6 months down the road before you can put your house on the market. I mean, any suggestions?
Well, my suggestion would be get them to start making their payments right away. Right. Or if they have the ability to pay 3 months of their payments right away, that is one option that you could present to the lender and ask them the question, hey, if they went ahead and paid for 3 months of their payments right now because they were in forbearance, could they qualify now? That is a way that you could be able to get around that. It's just going to depend upon the lender.
Okay. Does anybody have any lenders that are working around that? I mean, all the ones I've talked to, from MyAmCap to everywhere, it's got to be that they've made their payments for, a specific amount of time.
I'd reach out to Pete Swain at Cowtown Lending.
Okay.
And see if he has any ideas, because he is a broker of mortgages, so he can kind of shop them all over the place.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And then in other parts of the country, you'd have to check with your local leadership to see what they think. All right, any other takeaways from today? All right, well, I hope you all I trust that this was valuable to you. If you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to reach out. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week. I'll see you then.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.